West Coast Lost Boy.
Welcome to BAM Fight Club. I'm Colby. This is Fern. We're previewing UFC 272, Covington vs. Masvidal, March 5th, this Saturday, in the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. Main card starts at 7 p.m. Pacific, prelims at 5, early prelims at 3, which you can catch on ESPN+. First up, we have Sergey Spivak versus Greg Hardy. Spivak coming in as a negative 195 favorite against Hardy, plus 165 underdog. I'll go ahead and kick off this analysis. So, Spivak and Hardy are both coming off of losses in the last fights. Spivak had a KO loss to Aspinall in the first round. Hardy had a loss by KO against Tuivasa, also in the first round. So both of these guys are coming off of a difficult situation mentally, which is getting KO'd, which is probably one of the hardest things to go through, especially if you've been on a win streak and been having some momentum with you. To run into that roadblock and get knocked out, especially in the first round, has got to mess with your head. So both of these guys, I feel like, are going to be in a similar spot, and this is, to some extent, going to be just a battle of wills. Who really has that competitive spirit, who can bounce back, put the loss in their past and move past it. Spivak, in his fight against Aspinall, landed 0 of 11 strikes and had 0 for 2 on his takedown. So he literally landed no damage whatsoever, had no control time. He ended up getting KO'd after having kind of a sloppy clinch in the middle of the ring, which opened up an opportunity for Aspinall to catch him with a short hook and just took him out. And with Hardy, he actually did a little bit better. I liked seeing his jab in his last fight against Tuivasa, and he actually had Tuivasa stunned for a minute, and it was when he went in for the kill is when Tuivasa, who's got a great chin, he's always dangerous, ended up countering Hardy and ended up getting the TKO. And I think in this fight, I'm choosing Hardy to win just because Hardy's so much bigger, so much more powerful, I think, than Spivak. And Spivak has a very defensive-heavy style where he seems to counter a lot. In his last fight, he was really waiting for the other guy to throw. The problem is, especially in heavyweight, if you're going to be defensive counter striker, even if you block a strike against a big powerful heavyweight, it can still do damage, it can still rock you. So I really don't like that style as much as I would for somebody who's 135 145 pounds. If you think of like Peter Yan, he's got like a great defensive counter strike style where he'll block punches and he'll come right back. But for those lighter guys, it's much harder, I feel like, to punch through a good block and still do damage, whereas with these heavyweights, they're just so powerful they can punch through a lot of that defense. So I'm picking Hardy to win. I think he's just bigger, more powerful, and do you have any thoughts on this, Fern?
Yeah, with Hardy is somebody that I've kind of been rooting for and hoping that he can be successful. He's had some issues out of the ring, and I want to see him succeed because I can see his athleticism. He is built, he's strong, he's solid. That fight against Bam Bam, I thought he was going to finish Bam Bam, and Bam Bam, as we know at this point, is still the only person left that can't get knocked out for some reason. We were wrong about the last time about Derek Lewis and Bam Bam, that neither of them could get knocked out. He knocked out the person we didn't think was knockoutable. So, but Hardy can hurt people. He wants to pounce on them and finish them, and that's where you see his inexperience. He's a great athlete. He needs to be a good martial artist, a decent martial artist, and he can easily hang with people. You can see that. I'd love to see him and Bam Bam go at it, eventually in the future, because he definitely was able to damage Tuivasa more than I think Lewis was, and I'd love to see him get that back. But if he keeps rushing in there, hands low, excited, he's gonna get stopped again. But definitely rooting for Hardy on this one. I want to see him overcome all these things. I want to see that rematch with Bam Bam. I want to see these fights where they're facing people who were a challenge to them in the past.
Yeah, and if we're both picking Hardy, remember Hardy's the underdog here to plus 165. So, in my opinion, I don't agree with those odds. I do think they're giving more credit to Spivak because Hardy's coming off of a 2-loss streak, where Spivak's just coming off of his last fight was a loss, 3 wins before that, and Spivak is also faster. He's right around that weight where Miocic is at the 240 range, which I think is good for most heavyweights. It gives you a little bit of advantage with speed. But if you have a defensive blocking style, I don't think that speed is going to give you much of an advantage, especially going against a power puncher like Greg Hardy. So, yeah, might want to put some money on this one. Next up, we have Kevin Holland versus Alex Oliveira. Holland coming in as a big favorite, negative 330. Oliveira coming in as a plus 260 underdog. Fern, how'd you break down this fight?
So I'm a fan of both of these guys. Both of them have great striking. In looking at their previous fights and their previous outcomes, Holland, he still has that fight, the last fight, that it shows that, it was the accidental clash, headbutt. Wasn't really close, but it affected him, and, he was having good results up until that moment. So I looked at one of his fights against Jacare, who many of you guys may or may not know is just grappling great. He is amazing. He is a person who I'm surprised didn't end up winning gold. One of those great grapplers, great all-around fighters like a Damian Maia, Brazilian. And one of the things that stands out about Holland is he has an 81-inch reach. It's ridiculous. He's like, I even went back and looked at his fight against Marvin Vettori. Vettori had I think 73-inch reach. So he's got ridiculously lanky arms. So in Jacare's, in the fight against Jacare, I was looking at his ground game, like how did he do against somebody who has great ground game? And, he was able to do elbows from the back, elbows from the sprawl. He grabs the glove, like when he was in bottom of the guard, he was grabbing the wrist and then kind of pulling it to the side and then swinging with the other hand. So kind of like he was what's that toy that's like the paddle ball on the rubber band that you hit and it comes back, whatever it's called. That's what he looked like he was doing with Jacare. He would just pull him with his left hand, hit him with his right, just bam, double. And it was super interesting. It definitely stunned Jacare and got him doing some things that I didn't expect him to. He ended up finishing Jacare from bottom guard. Basically he pushed Jacare, puts his hands on his hips, kind of pushed him up, and then leaned forward as Jacare was the one against the cage, and then just started pummeling him down into the cage. And very highlight reel knockout. Against Vettori, he had great kicks at range, fast, using his reach. It was a short notice fight, so Vettori went from being an underdog to a favorite, and you could see the difference in skill levels at that point. Holland has definitely tried to implement wrestling into his training. He's been known to go train with DC and his wrestling team, trying to improve his skills. They mentioned that he's a BJJ black belt, which was weird to me. I definitely saw his ground skill against Jacare, but not against Vettori, not against, Derek Brunson. Does great job of putting his feet on the hips, enough to just kind of push off and stand up. Great guard reversal at one point. He had his feet on the hips, like he was going to go for an armbar, and just ended up rolling forward with him. It was a really interesting watch. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that kind of reversal from bottom of guard. Alex Cowboy Rivera, great person to me. Reminds me of Cowboy Cerrone. He's just a Brazilian version of him. Somebody who is known to fight and bring the fight. I analyzed his last fight against Nico Price. He does a great job of leaning back and countering with the right hand. Reverse the cage, the clinch against the cage into a trip. And he just does a good job of countering. He caught a kick, threw a straight right. In top guard and side control, he dominated. So this to me is going to be kind of the proving point between both of them, is going to be how's Holland going to do if Oliveira gets on top of him, because against Nico Price, who ended up winning that fight, Oliveira was able to hold him down and control him. And Holland doesn't have the record or the kind of success that Nico Price did, and Oliveira was able to control him really easily. On the bottom, I can see Holland going, into guard, using his elbows, feet on the hips, trying to stand it up. So this is a fight where I'm excited. I hope it goes to the ground. Their stand-up, I think, is pretty even. Holland with the reach should, be able to land a little more. I want to see it on the ground because their strengths are in each other's positions. I like Holland, young guy, up and coming. Oliveira, older guy. This is hard to pick because I'm a favorite. I'm a fan of both. They're both my favorite fighters. And Holland, I want to keep going up. And Oliveira, I want him to stay up, and not get cut, not get released, because he's just not having success lately. But in continuing with the theme lately is going with the older guy, living vicariously. Go Cowboy. What do you think, Colby?
Okay. Interesting. So, as far as the odds go, I don't know, I guess, why Holland is such a big favorite. I do think that he's favored to win. But I think you pointed out something earlier about him being a BJJ black belt. And I think one of Holland's problems in his last few fights is that he's been way too comfortable on his back, maybe because he has that black belt where he's just very comfortable on his back and he's going to, try to get in position to go for a submission. The problem is when you're going against a really good wrestler who's, very good at putting on that top pressure and staying safe from arm bars and, some of the basic submissions. It's not a super exciting fight, and, you end up losing. The guy who's on his back for 5 minutes in a round tends to be the one who loses, no matter how good you are, at BJJ. When you get to the higher levels. Now, if you're going to, there's a mismatch in skill, or a guy's just got, terrible grappling defense, yeah, you might want to hang out on your back and throw up submissions. It's not like you can't win from your back. And, we have seen, even at the highest levels, you can win off your back. It's just when it comes to the odds, the guy who's on his back in the higher levels of the UFC is going to be the guy who loses. And so what I'm curious to see is, has Holland learned his lesson? Because I feel like that's what he did in his last few fights. You mentioned that one with Jacare. That was the exception, right? But yeah. I think, was it in the 2 fights following? He had 2 fights since then where he spent a lot of time on his back. So, I think Holland, he, as much as he talks and might seem a little bit arrogant going into the ring, even while he's fighting, he's talking smack and having fun. I do think he is a humble guy, because after his loss, the one following Jacare, I saw him in some interviews, and it seemed like he was really open to feedback. He really doesn't want to let down his team. He's not the joker necessarily that he, kind of fronts in the ring and when he's fighting and playing around and having fun. I think he does take it seriously, and I think he has done some analysis, hopefully, and he's going to make some changes. And if he is taken down, as much as I'd like to see it, I would also like to see, Holland either get a reversal or get back to the feet and him try to do a takedown and be the one on top applying pressure. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing how this one's going to turn out. Edson Barboza versus Bryce Mitchell. Barboza coming in as a plus 130 underdog. Mitchell coming in as a negative 155 favorite. I can't wait to see this fight. It's been a while since I've seen Bryce Mitchell fight. His last fight was in October 2020. And I love seeing this guy's fights. He's always working towards the finish, even though he doesn't always get it. He's the guy, if you recall, a while back, who got the twister submission, was like one of the few guys to ever win by twister submission. And he actually attempted it in one of his other fights, was so close to getting it. I was like at the edge of my seat, like, oh my God, I think it was going to be like 2 fights in a row that he would have won by twister, which would have been absolutely insane. The other guy ended up being able to defend against it, and he still ended up winning that match. But I love watching Mitchell's ground game. He's a great grappler. He has, lots of different ways to win on the ground for sure. And I can't wait to see what he's going to try in this match against Barboza. Barboza being a guy who is known for having some very fast leg kicks. In his last fight, he ended up losing to Chikadze by KO. And in that fight, Barboza was throwing kicks. Chikadze was throwing kicks, obviously, which he's known for. And even though the Giga kick is what everyone's looking for when they're watching Chikadze, it was actually punches that ended up leading to the finish against Barboza. And they both actually had some leg kicks that looked like they landed in that fight. So it was a close fight. It was a good fight. Barboza is obviously the veteran, been around for a long time, well-rounded MMA fighter. That being said, Mitchell being the younger guy, the up-and-comer, I think he's hungrier. And I think when it comes to the ground game, he's just got much more confidence in throwing up different kinds of even weird submissions that, even veterans aren't used to probably having thrown on him in an actual fight. So I think the odds are correct here. Mitchell's going to win. I think he's got the better grappling and can take it to the ground. You got some thoughts, Fern?
Yeah, I've been watching the countdown episodes and kind of the build up to this just to see like additional footage and kind of get a feel for how everyone's feeling coming into this fight. Mitchell today was given his fight kit and he was able to get Venom to make him some camo shorts. So
yeah, that's right.
He's going to be wearing some camo shorts, and it's interesting to watch him on the Countdown or Embedded show. He was joking like, I want to get my black belt in farming type of jokester, and then like just hanging out at the pond, fishing for catfish, and like working out mitts with his friend on like grass in a field. Like he's just typical. I feel like it just reminds me of how Brazilians and other athletes in like like high poverty, low income areas are from. They just like are good at fighting and soccer because you don't need money at those things. Like you can just like get a pile of trash bags and make a ball, and you can just punch a tire. like watch the Embedded episode. He is just working out in the field with his friend, just hitting pads, like super. Just it's a good example to me of what determination is. Like he wants to fight, so he gets his workouts in where he can. Obviously, he trains in a gym with a childhood friend as well. With somebody in his life who's a father figure. But it's super interesting to watch his training because it's just no excuses. It's I'm going to prepare for this fight and utilize all my resources. Edson Barboza, love him. I've been watching him for years. If you watch, there's videos of him doing like kickboxing when he's like 8 or 9 years old. And so he's got the skills. He's got the technique. I think at this point it might be concerning if he's just been in too many wars and too many battles. Against Giga, that was, in my opinion, a fight of the year. Like they each landed some hard shots, and they're both good at it. So you knew that they hurt. You knew that everything was thrown with intent, and that it connected solidly. And him just being on the losing end of that, I worry about how well he's been able to recover. I'm actually rooting for Barboza because, again, like I want to see these guys who have been just through these wars come up and persevere. It just seems more often than not lately it's been apparent, become apparent that it's time for the young guys, the guys who have the energy to train, the hunger, the determination, all these things that unfortunately taper off as you progress in your career. So while I'm cheering for Barboza, I wouldn't be surprised if he lost and we have a new contender in the mix.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been so long since I've seen Mitchell. I completely forgot. Give me those camo shorts. So I can't wait to see what he's going to say in his post-fight. If he wins, what his post-fight interview is going to be like. They're always enjoyable. He's a character.
He got the camo shorts though, man. That's some power right there.
Yeah. So what's his new catchphrase going to be post-fight? Because it's just been, give me my camo shorts after every fight. So
I think he's going to
where does he go from here?
Self-award the black belt in farming. He could come out with the saddle. Oh, man.
All right. Can't wait to see this one. Next up, we have Rafael Dos Anjos versus Renato Moicano. Dos Anjos coming in as a negative 165 favorite. Moicano coming in as a plus 140 underdog. Moicano is a late replacement for the previous opponent who had to pull out. Fern, how'd you break down this fight?
Dos Anjos is somebody who everyone should be familiar with. He's fought, Diaz, I believe, has fought Covington, has fought all these fighters. He's got a ton of experience. He used to be at a lower weight class, and now I feel like, he's not cutting, not draining himself. But now he's dealing with fighters who are cutting and draining themselves, and with his opponent this fight, it's going to be like kind of a shorter, stockier fighter against a taller, lankier fighter. Not by much, but enough that I think it's going to play a big factor. Dos Anjos, he leads with his left hand high and his right hand's feeling out. He's one of those that like almost grabs, like you think they're going to grab the other person's hand or, maybe end up causing the other guy to run into a finger poke or an eye poke. He just, protects with one hand, and with the other hand, like, it's just like kind of, I guess, like parrying or ready to, and then throwing his strikes behind it. When he takes people down, he does a good job of, as they do the butt scoot, pulling their hips out, making sure that, they're not able to posture up and, try to stand up or go against the cage. He utilizes the shoulder roll really well. With him having his hand out there pawing, he's able to just deflect and just, he's in that stance basically ready as they throw, just shoulder up, turn, shoulder up, lean away. And in the pocket, he just stands there and he trades. He's going to be a fighter that is going to go out swinging, and it's going to be exciting to watch this. He kicks and pressures them against the fence. With his opponent, it's going to be interesting because he's a strong puncher as well. He does his left hand pawing though. So you're going to have a right-handed fighter pawing with a left-hand fighter. And he's, it's always interesting to watch people from different stances interact and engage. And so we'll see who's able to kind of assert the control there and the hand control, especially on the stand-up. I think ground-wise they're both pretty close to each other. Moicano does high defense and hand grabs. He actually does grab the hands and try to grab and step in, elbow, grab, step in, shoot. In defense wise, he in half guard, he does a great job. Like I've only seen like a lot of American wrestlers do this, is just able to just kind of put their whole chest down and their feet up, kind of like plank position, but just solid on their chest, pin their opponent, keep their movement minimum, and then able to scramble. Like as their opponent turns or anything, he's just spinning on top of them. It's kind of weird. Just, he like spins around them, like helicopter style, just like one side, oh no, other side, like trip, takedown. And I'm hoping for a very exciting fight that ends standing up. This is a fight I don't want to see go to the ground. Both of the guys have great ground game, no disrespect to it, but I want to see them go toe to toe. And because I'm interested in that hand game that both of them are going to be playing. And yeah, this is going to be a good one. It's going to be, I hope, fight of the night. This is my pick for fight of the night. If there's a pick for a fight of the night, I think it's going to be this one. What are your thoughts?
Okay. Well, yeah, I love watching Dos Anjos fight. He's a veteran, well-rounded. He's got great stand-up, great striking, great wrestling, great grappling. And great conditioning, and this is also going to be at catch weight, mind you, so he's not going to be probably as depleted as he otherwise would be. So calling this for a fight of the night, I think, makes sense, given that they're both not going to have to cut that last 5 pounds. And those last few pounds are always the hardest to cut, and what depletes you the most. So I think it's going to play a factor as far as conditioning, that they're both going to be able to push a faster pace than they otherwise normally would. And yeah, I'm not really sure who has the advantage in the stand-up. I mean, if you look at the stats, you'd think maybe Moicano, but it really matters what is the competition that you're going against to rack up those stats. And that's where I feel like Dos Anjos has the experience, against the top guys in the division. So I'm leaning towards Dos Anjos. I think probably the odds are right. I think him being the veteran, having the experience, he doesn't seem like a guy whose career is over. I'm not sure that he's going to be able to get a title shot again, but he definitely has not, just fallen off a cliff and faded out of existence. He, as we talked about in past weeks, there are guys these days like Arlovsky who, you could have said he was done a decade ago and he's still like winning fights. So it's hard to say.
Easily a decade ago.
Yeah. So Dos Anjos, he's not gone off a steep cliff where you think to yourself, okay, this guy just needs to retire. I really want to see what has he got left in him. What can he still grow? Can he still, evolve with the sport and, come up with different style fighting now than he had, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. So yeah, I'm looking for the fight. I think Dos Anjos is going to win this, and yeah, I think it's going to be decided in the stand-up.
Yeah, you bring up another good point with the short notice fight. I honestly wish there were more fights like this where they don't have much time to prepare for each other and make it realistic. Like, you're not going to, in a real life scenario, you're not going to be like, I know that guy's ins and outs, his strengths and weaknesses. This is going to be a straight up, maybe they've had a week to study. Maybe they're just going to go out there and just be like, I got to win. This is just going to be just, to me, like street level fight. Like you got minutes to figure this guy out, and if not, you'll figure him out or try to, in the fight. So that should be an idea. Like, just round robin something, just like throw a dart at a board, like you're fighting that guy tonight. Do it, please, somebody.
Well, I mean, that's how it used to be in the old days in the UFC. It was tournament style, so you might know who you're going to go against in the first bracket, but you've got 2 more fights after that, so you don't necessarily know who to train for. And yeah, that's where I think also the experience is going to play a factor, where Moicano or neither one of them are going to have time to really train for some specific scenarios to their opponent. It's just who's racked up a lot of fight experience and is just well-rounded and can just go out there and face anyone of any style. So I think that's going to favor Dos Anjos. So
yeah, for sure. And the week of you trying to learn their habits and their weaknesses and strengths, it being fight week when they have media obligations, they have all these things, acclimating to the area, because a lot of them don't live in the area. They fly in for the week. There's a lot more. It's just, I'm excited about this one because, like I said, it's just going to be like, just show up and fight. Let's see who the better man is.
And for the main event, Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal. Covington coming in as a negative 310 favorite versus Masvidal, plus 250 underdog. I cannot wait to see these guys go at it. I've been seeing so much of the trash talk between them back and forth, but also so much of the analysis from other commentators on YouTube and in podcasts and things like that. And I have so much information in my head about this fight that I don't even know what to think anymore. I feel like in the very beginning, I was like, Covington definitely has a decisive advantage, being the pressure volume striker. That makes it really hard for, a really good striker to find openings, and once the striker starts to open up, that's what leaves the opening for the takedowns that Covington is so good at getting. And we saw that especially in Covington's last fight with Usman, where he did the stand-up striking game and kind of went toe-to-toe with Usman, but actually did go for some of those takedowns. And we've seen in other fights in the past with Covington, like I'm thinking like against Robbie Lawler, where even if it is just a pure stand-up fight, Lawler's a pretty good stand-up fighter, and Lawler seemed like he couldn't throw anything during that match just because of the pressure and the volume that Covington put on him. So even if you do have an advantage in terms of striking technique, it's the cardio and the pressure that really becomes the equalizer, I feel like, for Covington in the stand-up. And with Masvidal, I feel like he could definitely still win. Either one of these guys could absolutely win. Masvidal has the knockout power, he has the technique, the accuracy, and he's gone up against other wrestlers before, and Masvidal knows what to expect, which is the volume pressure striking and the takedown. So, Masvidal could Ben Askren Colby Covington. It's a possibility, because he knows it's coming. So he's going to be looking for those kinds of opportunities. I mean, he knew it, obviously, with Usman, that Usman's a wrestler, and he couldn't quite find the right opportunity with Usman. I feel like in the first fight with Usman, there were a few times where he did actually find the openings and hit Usman, but Usman has such a good chin that he didn't end up going down. He looked like he got stunned a few times. So if Covington's chin holds up, I feel like Masvidal is going to, find a few of those openings with the striking. But if Covington's chin holds up, he's going to be able to get his hands on him, get a hold of him, take him down, grind him, through five rounds. I'm not sure that either guy is going to get the finish. I think if the fight is going to be finished, Masvidal's probably more likely to finish it than Colby Covington. But I do think Covington's more likely to win the match overall. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting because in watching the Embedded show, the Countdown show, all these things, you learn so much more about these fighters than you just do from Googling it. And for any of you guys who don't know, we're from Oregon, podcasting, and Colby Covington, wrestled at Oregon State, went to Springfield, and where he had, great success. In trying to mirror that, Jorge Masvidal has brought in Bo Nickel, who is a Penn State wrestler, 3 Big Ten championship, great wrestler. And so in watching the shows, I see how Masvidal is preparing by bringing in this highly accredited, top wrestler. It's hard to find anyone who doesn't think Bo Nickel is, top 10 wrestler, right? Of all time, or for, one of the top. And in watching that, I saw Covington. I'm like, who's he bringing in to train with him? And no one. Masvidal has a unique set of skills. Great striking, great kicks. He showed that against Diaz. He even showed that against Usman. I looked at their fights against Usman as kind of how can I compare them? Against Usman, Covington was switching stances, hands high, elbows up. He does a good job of not getting hit. I was surprised again in Usman fights, he just hands up, hands behind the head, just always, he knows he's going to get hit, and almost his fear of getting hit just gives him this crazy defense. And then he's able to counter from that because, he blocks and then he launches in, swings in. And Covington in the last couple fights has had great set of kicks. I don't know where you learned them. I'm excited to see him because it's just you don't expect a wrestler to throw kicks like that, and his striking isn't too bad either. With Masvidal, granted he lost against Usman in a more devastating fashion, but I think it's because him and Usman were trying to knock each other out. They had something to prove to each other, and with that approach, Usman came out on top. Masvidal, great leg kicks, left cross, jab into the chest. The thing that I'm going to be worried about is with Colby's pressure, he is just hands high, coming forward at you straight. Masvidal likes to kind of show off his abilities in the boxing area by keeping his hands low at times. And against Usman, it got him knocked out. I don't think Covington has the power to knock him out, but I think he's got the power to rock him, to hurt him, to get him on the back foot and then go for a takedown. So I know that there's a lot of hatred, a lot of anger, a lot of hostility in this. What I do want to see is Masvidal take this serious, because I believe, watching the Diaz fight, he was like, this guy's going to come at me. I'm going to fight. I'm going to take it to him. And against Usman, almost I did well with you on a short notice. I could easily beat you. I hope he doesn't have that mentality come in here and be like, if they won, whatever the story is in the gym, who got the better who, I don't care. Both of you guys better bring your A game, because I hope that, I don't want to see a death in the ring, but according to their predictions, it's going to be one. So,
Yeah, I another thing to keep in mind too is these guys were training partners, and one thing about who got the better of who during training is you got to remember there's a difference between training wrestling and training striking, and when they're sparring, they most likely never went 100% all out in their striking. but they probably almost guaranteed went 100% all out on the wrestling. So in the training room, Colby probably got the better of Masvidal because he's the better wrestler. But also, that's the only area where you can go 100% because you can go 100% wrestling without hurting the guy. If you go 100% in striking, right, you can't give the guy concussion. You can't hurt him. That's not part of, you'd be a bad partner in the training room.
The worst.
So it's one of those things where they probably both know it happened in the training room, but also, how does that translate into the ring? And also, Masvidal was a weight class lower when they were training together. So you've got those two factors where even though they train together, that helps them to know what each other's strengths are. But I don't think that tells them exactly how it's going to play out in the real fight, in real competition, when Masvidal is one weight class up and he can go 100% with strikes, whereas it's likely they never did that inside the training room. So there's that part of it as well to take into account.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see all the background, all the who can handle the energy, the the expectations, because they're high. They're high. Both guys, Masvidal I believe is 36 or 37, and Covington's a little bit younger, but I don't know what happens to the winner in this. Usman's still the champ. Both guys have lost to Usman twice. I don't know. I want to see them win. I want to see who wins. But also I'm just this does nothing to clear up the title picture for me. I want to see who they would put against each other next. Throw the winner against Diaz or Conor all day long. Let's just see good fights like that. No more fighting for the title. It'd be great to see them do something different to Usman, but Usman is just on another level at this point. So, what's your prediction? Who are you calling for this one?
So my prediction is I think the odds are right. Covington's going to win this one. I think it's going to be that volume pressure. He's going to get a few openings, and if he doesn't knock Covington out, then Covington's going to win with the pressure striking, and he'll probably take Masvidal down, hold him down, and just kind of do some ground and pound. I don't know if this is going to be the greatest fight ever, because one of the things, I don't think Covington actually hates Masvidal as much as it seemed like he hated Usman.
Yeah.
And if you remember the first fight with Usman, part of it too was they're both wrestlers, so neither one of them really had a great advantage. So maybe that was a reason to not use the wrestling, and they just did a stand-up brawl, stand-up war. But I feel like Covington has a clear advantage with wrestling in this one versus Masvidal. So unless he's terrible at strategy and just throws caution to the wind, or tries to make a great fight to do purely a stand-up battle, I feel like he's got to take him to the ground, which means it's probably not going to be as exciting as those last two matches against Usman. Although I still think it's going to be a great fight, and there's so many things that could happen with it. I just don't think it's going to be quite the war that it was with Usman. I think either Masvidal is going to find that one opportunity, take the shot, it'll be a KO surprise victory for Masvidal, or Covington's going to take him down and just ground and pound him, and it'll be what everyone expected. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. I think Covington is going to win by pressure, win by amount of output, volume of punches. I don't see him stopping Masvidal, but I see him winning and beating him, and majority decision win. 3 if not 4 rounds due to control. I see Masvidal getting a good shot in or two, and maybe doing enough to win that round. But Covington has come back from some adversity before, and we really haven't seen that from Masvidal yet, where he was beat down and then came back, whereas Covington, we've seen him beat down and come back and then still keep attacking. So
West Coast Hot Boy.